Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining. My name is Amanda Mills. I am one of the assistant directors of undergraduate admissions at Stony Brook, and we want to thank you for being here for a faculty and student Q&A focused on environmental design policy and planning in the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences. While we will definitely save time for questions, we'll have brief presentation and allow some time for introductions, and then you can use the Q&A at any point to ask questions that you have, and we'll address those. And while we won't be specifically discussing general admission requirements or processes, you're free to post those questions in the Q&A as well, and I'll answer those for you. And if you haven't had an opportunity to do so and you're just starting out the kind of application and admission process or thinking about us in the future, or if you need to clarify anything about the admission process, please attend one of our live virtual information sessions where a counselor and a student will review the process, deadlines, and policies and provide details about student life, living on campus, and student support. We also have a wide range of campus tour options and other presentations you can join as well. And I'll post some links for you later in the chat that you can bookmark for future reference. This session will be recorded and available to watch on the Stony Brook Admissions YouTube page in a few days. You can also bookmark that for later. I'll send that out in the chat. And some other resources that you may find useful. Now, please join me in welcoming our guests, Associate Professor and Faculty Director of Environmental Design Policy and Planning, Donovan Finn, and one of our undergraduate students, Heather.
Thanks, everybody. Heather and I are going to tell you a little bit about our program tonight. And I'm going to start this off. And as usual, I'm going to take a minute to share my screen here. And we'll be off to the races. Amanda, can you see that all right? All right, so this is an info session for the Environmental Design Policy and Planning major, of which Heather is one of our star students at the moment, and I am the director of that major. Just a little bit about me, very quickly. I'm an associate professor here at Stony Brook. I'm also the division head for the Sustainability Studies Division, and I'll explain a little bit about that in a second. I direct this major, and my teaching, I pretty much only teach EDP students, undergrads, some grad students occasionally. And my research and my teaching are focused on things like urban climate change adaptation, long-term recovery from catastrophic disasters, and community-led urban design. You would also take courses in EDP with a number of faculty from across the university and within our division. These are just a few of the folks you would specifically most likely have some courses with. Sarah Hamada, who's another urban planner, Gil Zhang, who's also an urban planner, but really runs our geospatial sciences programs, teaches all of the GIS courses, which is a key piece of software that you really need to be at least literate in order to get a job in many of the fields that our students go into. Mary Collins teaches courses on environmental justice. Adam Charbonneau teaches classes on environmental and urban history, and there are many others, but just to get to know a few faces and folks here. Just briefly, I thought this was actually helpful. I've not had this slide in the past. And I tried to create a slide that had every college and school, every division of SOMAS, and it became very quickly very messy. So this is a very simplified version of where EDP, environmental design policy and planning, sort of fits within the university. So we have Stony Brook University, large major research institution that has many sort of sub units within it. The largest one is the College of Arts and Sciences. We have the library, we have the College of Business, College of Engineering. One of those units is the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences. We call it SOMAS. Within SOMAS, we have 3 divisions. We have marine science, obviously, atmospheric science, and more recently, in the last half decade or so, the newest division, which is the Sustainability Studies division. So one of the 3 divisions of SOMAS, and I direct that division. We have about 12 faculty, and within that division, we have 3 majors. EDP is one. We also have coastal environmental studies, and then confusingly perhaps, within the Sustainability Studies division, we have a major called Sustainability Studies. I'm going to talk to you a little bit tonight about what environmental design policy and planning is. I will tell you it's distinct from those other 2 majors, but I'm not going to get too much into that tonight, just for the sake of time. Although I will say it's not uncommon for our students to take a major in one of our 3 majors and then do a minor in one of the other ones. We also offer only a minor, not a major, in geospatial science. That's the use of geographic information systems. It's electronic mapping and spatial data analysis. Many of our students also might choose to take a minor in that program as well. So even within our program, there are opportunities to get sort of multiple sort of strands of training. A lot of times what students ask at an info session like this is, what do students trained in your program, which I'll talk a little bit about the program in a second, but I thought it was helpful to think a little bit about what students do after Stony Brook. So many of them go to graduate school. They go to study these are kind of in ranked order, although this is not scientific, but this is just sort of anecdotal. They go to study urban and regional planning and landscape architecture, probably the 2 most common graduate school areas students go into. Sort of sustainability related areas at Arizona State and other places, just to get a graduate degree in sustainability. Increasingly, political science and also law school have become a path for a number of our students. A small handful every couple of years are interested in architecture school. That's a special case that I can talk to you about if you come to Stony Brook. Our students have had success getting into architecture programs, but it's an uphill battle because most architecture graduate programs are looking for students with an undergraduate degree, specifically in architecture, which Stony Brook does not offer. Real estate development, sociology, other social sciences. Occasionally a student will kind of switch gears and go into civil engineering or STEM field, but those are more rare. Other students go straight into practice. I was just talking yesterday to one of our part-time instructors who has a day job working for a local government on Long Island, and he was asking me, hey, he's hired at least 4 of our students over the last half decade or so, people right out of Stony Brook without a master's degree. And he called me up and said, hey, I got somebody leaving. I'm not teaching this semester. Who's a good student that you could point me to? So when those students leave Stony Brook and go straight into fields that are related to what we've trained them for in EDP, they go into working for local governments, county governments, town governments, state government in sort of urban planning and urban planning related fields. They might go into private consulting in some of those same areas. An increasing number are getting that GSS minor or at least are interested in geospatial work and go into doing sort of mapping based work. Some of them go to work for nonprofits, environmental, social justice oriented nonprofits, work more in sort of environmental consulting, maybe doing economic, social, and governance analysis for larger consulting firms or large corporations, and also real estate development is another area that some students go into. These are just a couple. I'm not going to read these, but as I said, most of our students, whether it's in terms of first job right out of EDP or whether it's going on to graduate school, they tend to focus primarily, let's say 50% or so, and then there's a mix across the rest of the students going on and doing a variety of other things. The 2 most common fields are sort of urban planning, urban design, landscape architecture. Urban planning is really sort of policy-based and more technical undertaking, sort of thinking of communities from a 30,000-foot view and how all the pieces of a puzzle fit together, as the American Planning Association said. And you can sort of focus in your career on transportation planning or economic development planning or land use planning or environmental resource planning and various other things. So our students tend to go into those fields. Many of them are also interested more in the design area. Like I said, a few go into architecture, but many more go into landscape architecture and urban design. And students always think landscape architecture is designing gardens for rich people, and that's a little bit of it. But what our students usually are more interested in is learning to design streets and squares and playgrounds and parks and campuses and those kinds of things. And we give you some background training in that, but students are often very well equipped to go on to top tier landscape architecture programs and learn how to do that kind of design. Just briefly, at Stony Brook, you take about 50 credits of what's called the Stony Brook curriculum. So that's courses that you get to choose from across the university as long as they fulfill certain types of requirements. They sort of fit in different buckets. And then those are often more sort of freshman, sophomore, tend to take those even maybe into the senior year. But starting often late sophomore year or into your junior year, you start taking courses more focused on your major. So for EDP, we require all the courses on the left, and those are sort of still more general. Those all sustainability studies department students take those courses. And then when you get into your junior and senior year, you'll take a bunch of courses that are specific to EDP. Most of these courses, as Heather can attest, are kind of often with the same core group of people. Maybe some person takes a class, a year early and another person takes it a little later, or, someone is a major versus a minor, but typically you tend to have sort of a core group of people that you take a lot of these courses with. And that's the list on the right. We really tried to the degree that we can, especially myself, but also other faculty, to have courses that are very participatory, where you're really learning by doing. We try to get out of the classroom. We go visit, talk about, see sort of problems or sometimes successes in the real world, and talk about how we can fix the problems we see, how we can learn from the positives. Even when we're in the classroom, we try to do a lot of team learning, participatory stuff, role playing, there are lectures, there is homework, but there's also a lot of other kinds of experiences that we try to build into the process. We pride ourselves on small classes. That's always a struggle because, of course, you're trying to balance a lot of different things, but we try to keep, especially our upper level courses, relatively small. So there's a lot of time for interaction among the students and interaction between students and the instructors. This is just a showcase of some student work, redesigning the plaza corner sort of on campus, right where we were doing this event. This was the area that our students worked for the entire semester, working to redesign. And so at the very end of the semester, the woman in the black puffer coat was our client from the Faculty Student Association on campus, and she was looking for some redesign ideas for this particular part of campus. And just to give you a sense, a lot of our students do internships locally on Long Island, in New York City, or sometimes in other places as well, either virtually, or maybe they travel somewhere for the summer, or maybe they go home for the summer. And so they, we really try to encourage students and do what we can to help them find internships. Increasingly, the program has been around for a number of years now. Our students are really out there in, entry level, middle management, and even upper management in a lot of great organizations, especially in the New York region, obviously, but a few that have gone further afield. And we've really, again, over the years have had growing success in placing students really in, excellent graduate programs. We've had students go to all of these graduate programs. We've also had students get accepted to many excellent programs, some of which are on this list, some of which are not. And then, they get accepted to 3, they choose 1, but they were all great options. So, we really pride ourselves. There's not a huge number of undergraduate programs like EDP in the United States. It's much more common to get this kind of subject matter training at the graduate level, and many of our students certainly go on to do that. But we are a relatively unique program at the undergraduate level, and we really have access to some excellent instructors, both full-time faculty at Stony Brook as well as practitioners who work in these fields who teach maybe one course for us a year or something like that. So we really try to bring a lot of value for the money. And I think with that, I am going to turn it over to Heather. I'm going to stop sharing.
Hello, everyone. All right, I'm just going to give you a little bit about myself. My name is Heather Wickham. I am a senior student here at Stony Brook. It's my last semester, kind of bittersweet, but yeah, just to give you a little bit about myself, I'm a commuter student. I grew up in Suffolk County, so I could do commute to school. I didn't start off at Stony Brook as an EDP major. I ended up switching to an EDP major my spring semester of my second year. And yeah, so through the major, I kind of have found my personal interest to be urban design, transportation related planning, urban design related to transportation planning, and a little bit about the experience that I have, at least just throughout the major and the opportunities that I've been given. I've TAing EDP 307, which is the main urban design course for the major with Dr. Finn. I TA'd this course last spring and I'm doing it again this spring. It's a really fun course. It's a really interesting course. Again, it's kind of the biggest, besides the project design course, it's kind of the biggest urban design related course. It has a lot of urban design theory in that. So that's always fun, very interesting. I really like TAing the course. It's nice to like sit through it again and kind of just remember things and learn new things as I go along. And last semester, so I guess my fall semester of my senior year, I was able to get an internship. That was with the Suffolk County Department of Economic Development and Planning. That was a really cool experience. It was very, at the time that I was there, very transportation related. There was a lot of things to do with the bus routes. They were redoing the bus routes. It was really interesting to be in that department at that time because there was just so much going on. So it was really exciting to see. And I also feel like getting an internship, it's not required for the major, but getting an internship did really help me kind of understand how policies work more, because of course throughout the major, like we do talk a lot about policy, urban policies, all of that. Like again, urban planning is very policy based. But I think getting an internship really helped me see all of those things kind of in real time. But yeah, so I again didn't start off as an EDP major, but I've really loved it the time that I have been here. And as for my course of action, I just recently applied to grad school. I applied to Hunter College in the city, which is exciting. But as Dr. Finn said, a lot of people do just go straight into the force, so that's also an option. Another option that I learned that I have been TAing is also a master's in landscape architecture, which could be a good option for some people who are more interested in the design aspect of the major. But yeah, overall, it's a great major. It's really taught me how to solve problems creatively, which is always nice, always a good skill to have. And I think one of the main things that I've taken away from this major is how to have fun while also learning. I think trying to have fun with the courses you take makes it a lot easier to learn stuff. And yeah, there's a lot of good opportunities in the major. Again, kind of as Dr. Finn said, like there's not a lot of like undergraduate programs out there that are really like specific like this. So yeah, it's awesome. Get to know your professors, there's always opportunities out there if you just search for them. And I think as Dr. Finn mentioned before, another great thing is the geospatial sciences minor. I personally didn't go that route, but it is convenient, especially if you are an EDP major, because a lot of the courses for the major end up lining up for the minor as well. So you can kind of fulfill most of the requirements for the minor with the major, if that makes sense. So there's only going to be like a couple other courses that you have to take. And GIS is really like up and coming. You'll learn more about it, of course, but it's a really good skill to have. And overall, yeah, get to know your professors and have fun with it.
Thanks,
So
Heather.
Heather brought up a good point about how many students come to Stony Brook or go to college as one major, and then along the way find another major. So at Stony Brook, was that something that was, how did that evolve for you? Because what did you start, what was your major when you started as a first year student?
So I bounced around a little bit. I went into Stony Brook as a psychology major, so very different. And I spent, I believe, 2 semesters as a psychology major, and kind of just started to realize that, maybe that wasn't something I was so interested in. Um, and then my first semester of my sophomore year, I had also, for reference, the way that I heard about the EDP major is I had a few friends that were already in the major. So I'd heard about it, thought it was interesting, wanted to give it a try. So my second semester of my sophomore year, I switched to a sociology major, but I minored in EDP just to try it out. Took like 1 or 2 classes for that fall semester. And then for the spring semester, I finally decided to just make the switch and switch my major to EDP. But yeah, it does happen really frequently. A lot of people will come into college as a completely different major than what they end up getting their degree in, and that's fine. But definitely, take courses, explore, pick up a minor if you feel like it, try stuff out. That's what the courses are there for, especially your first year. But yeah.
And I will say that, people grow up knowing what an engineer is. They grow up knowing what a biologist is. They don't necessarily grow up knowing what an urban planner is. But I think Heather is a good example of, we very often find students very often find us, and then they feel like they've found their intellectual home because they realize that it's a place where they can do a lot of the things that they're interested in, and have a specific way to apply them. Everybody wants to save the world. Everybody cares about the environment. Maybe people want to be a little bit creative, but they also want to make a difference, and maybe they want to, they're kind of interested in politics or policy, and EDP is a kind of major. It's very much a pre-professional type of training that we provide. I mean, there's academic elements to it, obviously, but we're really trying to think. We're always thinking, how can we make sure that what you learn in this course can apply directly into into the workplace. And I think, I've had more than one student say something like, I didn't realize I was urban planner in training until I found this degree, and then realized that's exactly what I was. So sometimes it's just a happy accident.
And Heather, we had a question that was pre-submitted that actually aligns really well with the kind of idea that when you're in high school, if you can remember back when you were applying to college, which I guess if you're graduating, was it like in the midst of COVID? You were trying to first big, yeah. So that in itself was probably a challenging time. Had you visited Stony Brook before everything was locked down?
Yeah, so I thankfully did get to visit. I was already kind of familiar with where Stony Brook is. I do live like a 20-minute drive away for reference.
Yeah.
So I was already kind of familiar with the campus. But yeah, funny enough, Stony Brook is actually the only school that I visited, because as soon as lockdown hit, it was like I couldn't travel or really go anywhere. Nobody was doing tours or anything like that. But yeah, I did get to visit the campus beforehand. I did do a tour in the fall.
And when you were in high school thinking about psychology, was it because of a class you took in high school, or was it, so yeah, we hear that a lot, that, you take a class in high school and you're like, I'm doing well in this. This is interesting. This is
Yeah.
what I'll do. And that's fine. So we want you to, kind of think like, this could be the right major for me. Cause I know we have a couple people attending this evening who are in all different majors. So, changing your major or deciding what your major is doesn't have to happen today. It can happen during your first or second year, and there is flexibility there. So, but we do encourage you to explore EDP further so that you might, make that change during the summer orientation. We have a question in the Q&A about minoring in EDP. And the question is, would they still be able to apply or potentially get into graduate programs related to GIS or the built environment with a minor in EDP? But I think the minor in GIS would be more appropriate with the major in EDP. I don't know.
I think there's no right or wrong answer here, honestly. The dirty little secret is that outside of STEM, I think many master's programs, and certainly urban planning and even landscape architecture, which is very, you don't learn how to design buildings in landscape architecture. You learn how to design the space between buildings. But even landscape architecture is very, and urban planning certainly, but I think even many other graduate programs really they're looking for people who are good students, right? Who have a passion, and they will take people from a wide variety of backgrounds. When I got my master's in urban planning, I came with an English degree. I had colleagues or peers with sociology degrees and economics degrees and architecture degrees and history degrees and fine arts degrees and all kinds of things. So even if you want to be, you want to study planning or geospatial analysis or something at the graduate level, an EDP major, an EDP minor, a GSS minor, all of those will equip you well for that. But, frankly, so will a psychology degree or a history degree or, a lot of other things. The one caveat to that is architecture. I probably should speak to that for a second, just because we typically get a student a year or so who wants to go to architecture school. They come to Stony Brook for some variety of reasons, but their goal is really to go to graduate school for architecture, and it definitely can be done. We've had multiple students do it. Only some graduate programs in architecture in the United States, I don't know about internationally, but only a subset, I don't know what percentage, will accept applications from people without a bachelor's degree in architecture, but a number of them will. And for those, you just have to make a really good case. And then when you go, you spend an extra year. So basically you take a whole year of physics, pretty much usually, and a couple of other things. And then you kind of meet up with the new 2-year program students. In your second year, you're in classes with a bunch of people for whom it's their first year because they have a bachelor's degree in architecture and they've learned all that physics that you didn't have. And then you kind of, you go from there. Some of those places also will have like a summer boot camp that you would attend before your first year of architecture school, where you learn software and those kinds of things. But certainly if you're interested in this field, a major, a minor in almost any of our degrees in our program will equip you, to be a pretty solid applicant for sure.
We had a question that was pre-submitted about, I guess, like not necessarily fieldwork based classes, but kind of real world application in the curriculum. And you talked a little bit about the project design. Are there other ways that that's kind of incorporated into the curriculum?
I mean, I should ask Heather maybe, but I try in my courses to use a lot of real world case studies, whether it's just showing examples from places I'm familiar with, project I'm familiar with. There's a world of, great information on YouTube. There's obviously articles and books and those kinds of things. I teach one course every spring. Heather's taking it now, where it's a project-based course. I was showing the slides from last year during the presentation. That is a class that's every year we have a client. Every year we have a project site. Actually, this year we have 2. And we basically redesign that site. It's like a mini, in graduate school, it would be called a studio course, like a design studio. We don't call it that, but yeah, that's what it is, where you're working almost like a consultant. You have one semester, a site, you're working as a team and individually, to kind of analyze and redesign a site. So that's a fairly hands-on project. I try to do sort of quasi hands-on stuff in other courses. I think other instructors do as well. We also have every year we have an instructor who is a practitioner, who I mentioned him before, and we're trying to increase the number of courses taught by sort of professional practitioners. And they're bringing in all, they're coming to class from the office, literally, I would guess sometimes talking about something they were working on that day, some thorny problem they were trying to solve, some public meeting they were at, some, policy they're trying to get implemented, whatever it is. So, the one challenge that we do have is that we're on a campus and that people have busy lives, and I get them for 80 minutes twice a week. And so it's hard to, jump in a van and drive an hour away to see something, because I try to schedule it at a time when when we're not supposed to be in class. 80 minutes isn't enough time. And if we try to schedule it at another time, someone has physics class and someone has to work. And so it can be challenging. But there's always opportunities also for independent work. If there's something you're interested in, I have a student right now working on a project that's based in New York City. He's actually coming to New York City for a couple of days over spring break to do some field work on that project. He's doing that independently. He's getting 3 credits for it. So he has to work I think it's about 8 hours a week throughout the semester on that. I've had other students do research that's more like online or using data sets and that kind of stuff, so that you don't have to have that kind of experience to do research. I've had other students do a bunch of data collection over the summer in their hometown, Albany, for example. I had a student, or even I had a student from Paris who, we had a long meeting in the spring semester, talked about a project she wanted to do. She spent the whole spring, had home in Paris. She was a tennis player, a scholarship, I think, tennis player at Stony Brook, but she was from France. She spent the whole summer in France, going around and taking pictures and taking notes about the topic she was interested in. And then she came back in the fall and wrote up a analysis of that field work she'd done over the summer. So we try to be very creative and flexible with trying to meet students where they are and things they're interested in. I have 2 students right now, as an example, who are really interested in transportation. And we don't have a specific course focused on transportation, because at the moment we don't have a faculty member who's an expert in transportation. But these 2 students are really interested in it. So they pitched to me last year to do an independent study course with me, where they're doing a whole sort of soup to nuts analysis of every aspect of transportation on the Stony Brook campus: the roads, the parking management, the bus system, the bike share system, the bike parking, the bike lanes, the sidewalks, like all of it. And they're learning a lot. I'm learning a lot from working with them, and it'll be a great piece for them to have in their graduate school application portfolio, or to take with them when they go apply for a job, because it's not an academic research paper. It's like it's a project. It's a very real world version of what they would be doing if they were a transportation consultant working for, they get hired by Stony Brook for, a significant amount of money. So, they came up with that all on their own, and I just kind of make sure the trains run on time, so to speak.
Heather, anything relevant to that topic from your actual class experiences?
Yeah, I think just even going back to the question of relevant field work or hands-on work, at least, I mean, from my experience, I feel like most of the classes within the major are very hands-on, just purely by the way they're taught. Because I think most of the way that most of my classes have gone, rather than, let's say, an instructor saying, this is what this is, learn it, now write a paper on it. It's usually more like, this is what this is, do this, if that makes sense. It's the work always seems relevant to, the potential career opportunities, professional experience. So yeah, I feel like I've learned a lot throughout the major, even just general professional experience outside of the major, you know, just like, well, I know that at least for the EDP major, I'm taking like a technical writing class right now. And like, I feel like that class is pretty helpful because, you know, the course we talk about, you know, building a professional resume and like, you know, how to apply to jobs properly. Like it is a lot of really useful stuff. So yeah, I feel like a lot of the courses are really hands-on. And again, I'm excited for the rest of this semester with the design course. That should be fun. But yeah, it all feels like very relevant experience.
I would add one
And
thing I
yeah,
haven't mentioned that's kind of along these lines. I mean, I can't speak for other instructors, although I know they all, you know, do the best they can, you know, are very creative with their teaching. One thing I try to do, every year I have a spring class, every year I have a fall class. In both of those classes, I try to bring in a practitioner, either in person, more often Zoom, just because I can get people from more places. I try to get an alum if I can, who can say, you know, I was at Stony Brook and then I went and did this and now I'm doing this. But sometimes it's just someone I know who might be, you know, just an expert in their field. And, you know, I don't like to go back to the same people every year because they're busy. So, but, you know, I would say if you take 2 classes with me over the course of a year, you're going to hear from 2 to 5 professionals, or occasionally a former student who's currently in graduate school who can talk more about the graduate school experience in planning or design. But I really do work pretty hard to try to keep in touch with former students, but also, you know, I have my own professional network of non-academic urban planners and designers and ask them. Had the class headers TAing right now. A couple weeks ago, we had a colleague of mine who's an assistant commissioner with the New York City Department of Transportation in the urban design area. And she spent 45 minutes with the class talking about a bunch of projects that she's working on in New York City right now. So try to bring that element in as well.
and another pre-submitted question we had was about the, you know, kind of future with Governor's Island and how, you know, will there be an opportunity for students or faculty to collaborate specifically from this major in the kind of design of that project?
Well, I just had a meeting at 9 o'clock this morning with the executive director of Governor's Island. I would say the honest answer is probably no, for a couple of reasons. One is they're paying a world-class architecture firm a lot of money to figure out the design of that place. And also because it's going to be a while. I mean, they hope to have a shovel in the ground in a couple of years, maybe for the first phase. And also because, you know, I think it's difficult for me to understand still a little bit, and I've had multiple meetings with them about sort of what the connection is, and I think they're still figuring it out between Governor's Island and Stony Brook. I think it's an enormous opportunity for the EDP major in particular, but it's all stuff that we're still kind of working out right now, and I don't know what the contours of that will be in the short or the long term, really. So it's hard to, in terms of the design of the island, no. In terms of just about anything else, I just don't know, because I don't, and then they don't know. It's just something that has to get kind of ironed out.
Yeah, it's more of like a stay tuned in the next few years to see what happens. A lot of students ask us about internship experience, and not only like what the process is to find an internship, but what would they want to know what they'd be doing as an intern. Like they kind of picture, you know, the intern like portrayed in, you know, movies or TV where they're like getting someone's coffee and running errands, but that's not the type of internships we're talking about in EDP. Is there any kind of insight into like how is it all faculty driven connections, or students finding these on their own?
Heather can talk about the experience. I'll mention that, you know, many students find internships on their own. I don't even know it. And then they tell me, oh, I want to, you know, you can get credit for internships. If it's paid or unpaid, you can still get Stony Brook credit for it. And I'll have a student come to me and say, hey, I got an internship I want to get credit for. I'm like, wow, congratulations. They find them on Handshake, they find them on the internet. Whenever a former student who's working somewhere is looking for interns and they contact me, I send those out to all the majors. We have a good relationship with a number of local governments and private firms, so sometimes they come to us and ask for students. Hey, I need a student who has an expertise in GIS. Do you know someone? So I would say I try to be a conduit for that for some students. Other students are just entrepreneurial and they figure it out themselves. And a lot of it is really not that different from looking for a job. I mean, it's the same websites, it's the same process. It really is a job sometimes. So in many ways. So yeah, I do what I can, but I don't hear. Many more students get internships than I hear about. They get them outside of me, but I certainly try to be a conduit when I can. But Heather could certainly talk about what the day-to-day experience is like, and
Yeah, so there's definitely like a couple different places that you can look. Like again, I know for the EDP major, a lot of different professors will just send out links and say, hey, this is an internship I found. It's for the summer. Like if you're interested, apply. So I think, utilizing those websites, because a lot of the times like they will be from big websites. Like I think like USA Jobs has a ton of like different like government internships and stuff like that. So going through those, and even if you're not interested in the internship, but even just looking at like what the website is and, checking back up on that. Again, I didn't get an internship until my senior year. I know a couple of people in the major that had an internship a little bit beforehand. I did mine for credit. I found my internship through a professor that I knew worked at the Department of Economic Development and Planning. So for me, the process was kind of just sitting down with him, emailing him, asking if he had any internship opportunities, going from there. So I personally, the internship that I had, I didn't find it through a website, but you totally could. Like I know a lot of people that have gone that route and done it that way. I myself was also a little confused, especially in the beginning. I didn't really know what to expect out of being an intern or having an internship, because I know, again, a lot of the times, like, you'll talk about getting an internship, having an internship, but you don't really know what you're going to be doing. And me personally, I really didn't know what I was going to be doing. I was very much like, this sounds cool. Yeah, like I'll do it. And like my first day, I really like did not know what to expect. But I think once you are in that environment for a couple of months, because again, I did mine for one semester, so it was around, 3-ish months. Once you get used to the environment, you'll kind of have a system going a little bit. Like in the beginning, I would walk into the office and go up to like every single person in the office and just be like, do you need help with something? Do you need help? Like I would go around the office and kind of just ask people if they needed help with anything. But once, like a couple months in, I kind of was able to come in, sit down at a desk and be like, oh, I remember from, like 2 days ago, the last time I was here, I have to do this. So actually, like I have something to start me off. But yeah, I think also just for me, at least my experience, everyone in the office was really like very helpful, very welcoming. So it was always like people knew that I wanted to do stuff. So like a lot of times like I would just have somebody come up to me and be like, hey, like I'm working on this project. I'll send you the link if you want to help. But yeah, so it's a lot of just kind of bouncing around and working on different projects. That was my experience. It was like the minute one's over, I'd be like, okay, who else is working on a project? Who needs help? But yeah, so I think after a couple of months, you kind of start to get used to your environment. Obviously, if it's remote, it's a little different, but either way, a remote internship, most of the time you will get assigned work. In that case, it'll be kind of easy to organize. But yeah, you just got to get like accustomed to it a little bit. But Yeah.
And Heather, were you doing like would someone give you something and say do some research on this? Or I think tends to be in planning, we do a lot of, planners meet with a lot of stakeholders and other departments, and often I hear students will say that they spend a lot of time just sort of going to meetings, just sort of shadowing their supervisor and maybe taking notes, but really just kind of learning and absorbing things that way. Uh, Doing research on, you know, find different, find different examples of this kind of thing that we could apply here, or can you look up the cost of these items, or that kind of research. I've had students that have written, reports of various kinds on, the effectiveness of a program that's been in place for a few years, and the community hasn't really had time to, have a staff person dedicate some time to it. So they have the intern. They say, "Here's all the data that we've collected over, on park usage over the last 10 years. Can you give us can you put it all into Excel and kind of give us some, put a PowerPoint together and kind of just tell us how well it's working, how well this program is working, or whatever." So I think there's a lot of that kind of stuff, and I'm sure it's as different as there are internships, right, in terms of what the experience is.
And Heather, you mentioned that you thought it was really important, and I think it is important to have fun while you're learning. Are there things that you got involved in outside of, kind of your classwork and internships that really, enhanced your experience at Stony Brook?
Yeah, I think for me, it was not simple, but like relatively simple because I do just really enjoy the major. So it was already fun. And of course, like there's going to be certain classes, there's going to be certain things that, you don't enjoy as much as others. Like again, for me, I'm very more interested in like the design aspect. Going to learn any kind of software for me is a bit of a struggle. So, GIS and stuff like that, like I do find it interesting, but I definitely struggle with that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think just outside of class and, like TAing, internships, all of that, like I would say just general research on my own time, like I'll watch YouTube videos sometimes about things related to urban design and urban planning, stuff like that. I remember when I took EDP 307, I got really into like urban sketching. Like I was doing that for a little while as a hobby, and watching videos on that because I just, I thought it was interesting. I thought it was fun. I also, again, found out about the major through a couple of friends. So I did have other friends that were pretty interested in the major. So that was kind of like a nice thing to bond over and be able to talk about with other people. I have a friend that actually, she went to Binghamton, but she's also on the urban planning route. She's in graduate school right now. So, like I was able to talk to her about that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think overall just doing my own research and just having fun with it outside of class. Again, YouTube videos, it can be interesting, articles, anything like that. But yeah, definitely it was relatively simple for me because the classes are really fun and engaging. It's not, that's the other thing about the major. It's not always just you sit down for an hour and a half and it's a lecture. Some classes are like that, but a lot of the classes are group work and you're doing activities and, we're going outside and we're doing things. So it's like very engaging in that way. So it's kind of easy to have fun.
And you mentioned being a TA. Was that a huge time commitment? Was it difficult to be a TA? What was that process like? Sounds like a good resume builder.
I think it was more so exciting for me. Like I was excited to do it the first time. I still have fun with it. It wasn't like completely super time consuming or anything like that. Like I remember like organizing some stuff, sending some emails, stuff like that. A couple of people would ask me questions throughout the semester. So it wasn't like a huge time commitment. But it's fun. It's honestly really enjoyable. Again, it's one of, I think EDP 307 is one of my favorite classes that I've taken at Stony Brook. So it's nice to be able to sit down in that class and like listen to it again as like for some people, as odd as that sounds, it's nice to be able to kind of like go through the content again and like pick up stuff that I missed the first time I took the class, you know, or just refresh my memory and be like, oh, I forgot about that. Cause there will be moments where I'm like, oh, I forgot about like this part of the class. Like it's nice to refresh my memory in that way. So, but yeah, it's fun. It's exciting.
Okay, well, I don't see any new questions that came in. And do either of you have any kind of final words for our future Seawolves? Words of encouragement as they go through the application and decision-making process for college?
No real words of wisdom. I will mention that we're trying to do more with sort of community building type stuff. So having I'm just this week I'm working on trying to put together sometime right before finals, so end of April probably, kind of a like a lightning talk day where students who are doing independent research with faculty members will get some pizzas and meet. There's a time block on Wednesdays where there's never any classes scheduled across the entire campus. And try to have just a little social time then where people could see what other people are working on for research. Um, we have a student, Paul, right now who's starting a club, architecture, urban planning, and urban design club, because there are students on campus who are not EDP majors, but who are maybe didn't realize it existed, or are just kind of interested, but are already doing something else. So, and he's hoping to organize like movie nights and field trips and that kind of stuff. So, I think people are, are taking the initiative to kind of build on what we're trying to start here. So I think it's a good time to come to Stony Brook.
Heather, any last words of advice as you leave Stony Brook and a new group arrives?
Yeah, I think just overall, kind of like I mentioned before, like just have fun with it. It's so much easier to learn when you enjoy what you're learning. So have fun with your classes, get to know your professors, make friends in the major too. Like again, there's a lot of group work that goes into the classes, and like I will be honest, as a freshman in college, I wasn't a big fan of group work, like group work made me a little nervous, and like going through this major, it's now like, oh, this is an opportunity for me, like looking at it in that lens of like, oh, like I get to, work on my own collaboration skills and like work with other people and get to know other people too, because everyone in the major is great. Like I've made a lot of friends through the major. So yeah, have fun with it.
That's great advice. Well, thank you both so much for your valuable information and your time. And we wish our guests the best of luck in their future endeavors. Hope to see you on campus in the fall as future Seawolves. And good luck, everybody. Thank you. Good night. Bye-bye.